wish every workshop could start like this, but we have a huge storm rolling through. I'm on a private workshop for the next 5 days. I just can't wait to get amongst the landscape with this fresh snow, which has come down to pretty much sea level. There is nothing like snow in the rainforest. It's just such a beautiful combination, and an absolute pleasure to be out here amongst it. It can be overwhelming. The forest is challenging at the best of times. Throw some snow in the mix and it's quite a visual overload. I'll often use a telephoto lens to try and get that dusting on the trees. You would have seen this in previous videos. I've got quite a few images in the portfolio over the years. But on these snowy days, I like to just react. You get these squalls where 1 minute it's sunny and then bang, a sudden downburst of snow comes through, and it's just really fun to react to the conditions, be a bit more spontaneous. How's that? Hello, mate. How are you? Now I wish I had my wide angle. I'm kicking myself. Let's get back with the telly, see what we can do. What a poser. What do you reckon, mate? Not a bad way to start the trip, is it?
December 25th.
Oh.
It's come.
Christmas has arrived.
I know.
Speaking about those layers, if you position yourself here now, you can get the greens on the left of the frame, then the stream, and then the peak in the back. And you'll be nice and close here, so we'll have that real three-dimensional feel, getting those greens close. The light is coming in. Now when I shoot towards the sun, we want to block most of the light. We don't want a foreground that's going to be way too bright. So see that, for example, that's very bright. It's going to be hard to lead the eye to the background when the light is that bright. So we'll have to position ourselves partly in the shade, but look at that tree there, that formation. That just really works well as a main subject, okay? But yeah, but that light's going to be a little bit strong. If we're lucky, maybe the cloud will block the sun briefly and we'll just have a gentle backlight. If you can't get a good photo of this, then you might want to pick your new hobby, mate, I think. If you can't get that right. It doesn't matter if I've been here over 300 times, it just always finds a way to take your breath away. Incredible. All right, thanks for joining me out in the field. Very quickly, let's talk about post-processing, because what I want to bring up is essentially having the ability to go with your gut instinct and understanding that sometimes less is more. Now, the example, I've got two examples. Let's have a look at the Kia raw file here. One of the ones that I've selected, the juveniles will have the yellow on the beak, but look at the raw file, very dark. This is quite common. You've seen in so many of my videos, exposing for the highlights, lifting the shadows up in post. So let's do that now. We're gonna lift up all the details with exposure, recover those highlights a little bit. I will crop this in slightly, just I couldn't quite get the tightest comp for obvious reasons with these animals here. And then that top portion, I'm going to use a brush. Now I'm going quick on purpose because I've got another raw file I need to get to. So we'll just recover up here. That's way too much. So we'll just dial that back. So it looks more natural, even about there. Might throw in a landscape profile. potentially cool the image down just to really complement those greens. A little bit of vibrance, and in the centralized part of the frame, I'm just going to put some extra light back here because that's where I want to draw the eye to, okay? That centralized part, it's almost like a vignette but in reverse, okay? Because we're just doing the brightening instead of the darkening. Let's look at the before and after now. Incredibly dramatic, okay? How many steps were there? Maybe 7, 8, 9, quite a few steps involved to get that result. Now when we zoom in, beautiful, you know, low noise, just these animals are absolutely beautiful. I love how, you know, the the siblings here are fighting, basically having a little bit of a play. There's the mum. The keas are tagged, some of them, and that's for research, so they're wild, but they do eventually get a tag so we can monitor them and see what they're up to. So that's why that one's tagged, whereas that juvenile one isn't, and then this one is. So anyway, the before and after, you know, dramatic result, but still bringing it back to a point which I'd say, you know, really represented what the eye was seeing and how the scene really was. I'm now going to bring up a raw file from Milford Sound. This is a telephoto image, 105mm. Now, when I look at this one, we haven't touched it at all. I'm happy with it already. You know, I look at this, and this is a common scenario I've had clients in where they look and they're almost a bit perplexed and confused because they think, but what should I do, Will? And I'll say, well, hardly anything. If you like it, then great, that's fine. So the lesson I want to talk about is the fact that you don't need a multi-step, high-intense workflow for every single RAW file. Do not be afraid to do the absolute bare minimum on some images. That's a great, it's a great, I was going to call it a problem to have. It's not a problem at all. It's just a great scenario to be in. It often will happen when you're doing these telephoto shots with sidelight. What would I do to this one? I would still do a couple of adjustments. I'd probably slightly brighten everything with exposure, and then I'm going to darken the sky down, very similar to that Kia one. And I'm doing that just to push the eye back down to the centralized part of the frame. Okay, so just a little bit darker up there, adds that dramatic look as well. And then where the light is in the middle, potentially the opposite, just lift the whites up and just boost that light to bring the eye to where we want it to go, or through there, but dodging basically. You could as well, if you're inclined on one like this, slightly warm those highlights, okay? So we've done about 4 things. Brighten the overall, darken the sky, and then warm and brighten that center part. If I wasn't teaching or talking, it's done in about 20 seconds. We'll do a before and after. Before, after. So I was really happy with the RAW. It's just very subtle adjustments there to really push the eye back to where I wanted to in that centralized part of the frame. Job done. Now, I'm not obviously saying I would do it that quick and that's it, it's completely done. I'd let it marinate. Remember the marination process. Come back later on with fresh eyes just to double check that you haven't gone overboard or maybe you haven't done enough. But 2 completely different approaches, but it's the same workflow essentially. It just means sometimes you'll do a lot less. It's all based upon your own subjectivity. You need to look at your RAW files and just say, am I happy? Am I not? If you're not, what's the game plan? And that game plan will vary every single time. But do not be afraid to keep it simple. And if you've learnt from me, if you followed my processing, maybe you've got the course, which you can check out down below in the description. My workflow is just so simple. It's using those same tools, but you just need to adapt it for every single RAW file. But don't be afraid to just keep it simple, okay? If it only needs 3 things, that is a great scenario to be in. I really like that light there, guys. That is just some of my absolute favorite light to behold in nature. I truly love that dynamic. When we have that side light coming in and it's creating that contrast there with the dark clouds and then patches of light coming through, it just paints the landscape. Oh, mate, I'd happily shoot that day in and day out every day. I love it. Anyway, that's enough from me. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. I'm gonna keep that Kia image as well, so I'll go back and just refine that processing, but you get the idea of the workflow. Such a beautiful, special animal. They're endangered. It's the only alpine parrot in the world. And to have those close encounters like that, gee, very humbling, very humbling. And to get it as a landscape image is something, as you know from previous videos, it's something that I really love to try and do. All right, Thank you so much. If you have any questions, leave them below. Otherwise, I hope to see you in another video soon. Cheers.